Welcome to COASTER-net Uncut.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of COASTER-net Uncut, where every week we will give you our uncut opinions about the amusement industry and the rides we love. I am Danny Miller from Rochester, New York, alongside Andy Rabarchek, who's out there in Chicago, Illinois. Andy, how you doing tonight? Your lights are my lights are off too. Why is that?
Why do we have our lights off? This is a little weird sitting here in the dark talking to you. I don't know,
Yeah, this is gonna be an interesting show with us sitting here in the dark.
You know what would be really cool is if we did like a show about things that don't have light.
So it's not a light ride. Could they be dark rides?
Oh, a dark ride. Yeah, that's what we should talk about tonight.
Let's talk about dark rides since we're sitting here in the dark.
Let's do it.
I think it's rather fitting. We've got the apparel down and everything too.
Somewhat.
Somewhat. Well,
it was the closest I could find.
well, I got the Wonder Mountains Guardian shirt on, which we will be talking about tonight. So yes, we're going to talk about dark rides tonight. And no, we didn't just come up with that just now, but sure, why the hell not? We actually put that up last week and got some very good opinions from the folks, the listeners, the viewers, so we'll be talking about those tonight as well. But I think before we really get into the discussion, I think, Andy, you and I kind of have to draw a line. And let's discuss real briefly for maybe 3 minutes here what we're going to talk about and what we're not going to talk about, because there are some roller coasters that qualify, I guess, as roller coasters that can also be considered dark rides. And you and I, right up front, we're going to kind of draw a line about what we're going to consider a dark ride for this discussion and what we're not. So you got the Disaster Transport shirt on. I think rides like that and maybe like a Space Mountain and a Mystery Mine, and we talked about this line we're going to draw. I think those rides we're more considering roller coasters that just happen in the dark. I think we're going to kind of draw the line at Revenge of the Mummy, I think is the one that you and I kind of discussed, because that's really the perfect blend of a thrill coaster and a dark ride. It's a good mix between the two. So anything that I think is more of a dark ride than Revenge of the Mummy, I think is going to be okay in this discussion. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, that the problem is, and it creates this confusion, is that you have roller coasters in the dark, and some even try and blur that line. Like we've talked about Guardian, and you look at like things like Blazing Fury and Fire in the Hole at Silver Dollar City, that really
Black Diamond,
those are actually more dark ride than coaster. And like you said earlier that Revenge of the Mummy is going to be the drawing line, because like you actually consider it more of a dark ride, where I think it's more of a coaster, but it's so close to that line there that it kind of balances it perfectly, like you said. But I think every other ride falls to one side or the other. That pretty much there are very few rides like Revenge of the Mummy that play that middle ground so well. So a ride like Gringotts that just opened up at Universal, that falls squarely on the dark side ride, even though there are a few coaster elements. Same thing with Guardian. But on the flip side, you have things like Fire in the Hole, you have things like Space Mountain, Rock and Roller Coaster, The Exterminator at Kennywood, that those things are more on the side of roller coasters that have dark ride elements in them. So I think we're gonna exclusively focus on things that fall to the dark ride side of Revenge of the Mummy. So if you've made comments about Space Mountain or Mystery Mine, we will not be discussing those on this program, because we consider those.
I don't think we've had anyone just talk about those. I think everybody that has named at least one ride that really is, at least in our minds, considered a dark ride. And we talk about Revenge of the Mummy and this line that we're kind of drawing. I think Revenge of the Mummy is the perfect combination, because you start off as a dark ride, you go through three or four different rooms, and then you get into a little bit, you go into the coaster arena that we talked about, and then you go through another section that kind of could be classified as a dark ride, and then you go back into the coaster arena to really finish the ride. So I think it's really a good mix of both, and you still have some good dark ride elements inside the coaster arena with, not going to throw out any spoilers here, but you have fog and heat and the skulls that are inside there. So it's really, I think Revenge of the Mummy is probably the best roller coaster that you could also classify as a dark ride. And maybe that's where we start the discussion tonight with Universal in general, because Universal really is, I think, the king of dark rides. And some people get on Universal sometimes because you go to, especially Universal Studios, not so much Islands of Adventure. Islands of Adventure does have more actual thrill rides, but you go to a park like Universal, you go to a park like Universal Studios in Florida, and it's kind of like, well, most of these rides are just screens, and then you have some live action sets. Talk about Forbidden Journey a little bit, maybe in a little bit, which is over at the other park. But a lot of people talk about how a ride like Transformers is so similar to Spider-Man, and it literally is the same exact ride vehicle, and it's a different overlay. And you see stuff like that with the dark ride, but that kind of thing doesn't bother me, especially when you have varying stories. The ride system isn't as much of a factor to me, because you could say the same thing, well, Montu and Raptor and Banshee, well, they're the same ride system. Are those the same rides? Absolutely not. And people have their favorites. So maybe we start with Gringotts, and that's one that you and I have both been on since we've both been down to that area. We've both been down to Florida in the last 2 months here. Gringotts falls on the dark ride side for me. And I think maybe we can get into a little bit without giving away much of the ride. There is not much of a roller coaster to it. There is a little bit of coaster at the beginning, and then there is basically like 2 turns of controlled coaster elements at the end. And other than that, it's really just a dark ride. And if you don't really want to know how Gringotts works, maybe skip ahead 2 or 3 minutes, because the way the cars work, and maybe this is what I was expecting it to be, like a Revenge of the Mummy.
Yeah.
Similar. That's how I had heard it discussed. I had heard people say it's a less intense version of Mummy, and that's a good way to put it, but it didn't have as much, it doesn't have as much coaster as Mummy.
Yeah.
It's not really a coaster like Mummy is.
Like, I was kind of expecting the same thing. I was kind of expecting more of a ride like Mummy, especially after seeing what the ride vehicles look like. The ride vehicles look very similar to the Mummy. Now, keep in mind, the Mummy was built by Vekoma, correct? Was it?
No, I think it's Premiere because of the launch.
Okay.
Let me double check that.
Okay,
double check that.
But for sure, Gringotts was built in-house by Universal. So I was kind of surprised that it was Premiere. So I was kind of surprised that the ride vehicles look so similar to Mummy, because I knew that it wasn't built by the same company, in this case, Premiere. But I was expecting more of a coaster, and it's not much of a coaster at all. And it was kind of disappointing from that aspect, because, if you've seen the Harry Potter movies, and I've seen them all, I love them all, the Gringotts would make an awesome roller coaster. It really would. And it was a roller coaster in the movie. For all intents and purposes, it was a roller coaster. And for some reason, Universal decided to put a little bit of coaster element into it, but not do that much with it after that. And I'll be honest, I was kind of let down by Gringotts, that, having these high expectations of, something like, I love Spider-Man, I've loved Forbidden Journey. I want to say I rode Transformers before I rode Gringotts. I did for sure. So I kind of experienced Transformers too, which is another one of their newer dark rides. And then when I get on Gringotts, I'm kind of like, and that was just my general feeling. Now, to tell you where I stand on it, I have this weird triangle of Spider-Man, Transformers, and Forbidden Journey that I think Spider-Man's better than Forbidden Journey. I think Forbidden Journey is better than Transformers, but I think Transformers is better than Spider-Man. And it's kind of like, I think I said that right, but it's kind of like this thing, if you use like the transitive property, it just doesn't work out there for you. And you're like,
A beats B, B beats C, and C beats A.
So currently, I made a decision not based on comparative ranking, but based on, I just said Transformers is probably the best. And the reason why is kind of what I hoped for Gringotts, to bring it back to that point, was, Universal sells itself on writing the movies. That was their old classic tagline. And I will say this, that Transformers, if you're ever going to write a movie, now granted, Transformers is not known for its Oscar-worthy acting or storyline. It's usually a bunch of robots blowing each other up. And guess what? That's what you get in this ride.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
And on that note, go ahead. I'll let you finish up before I jump in with my thought on the Transformers.
And that's why I gave Transformers the edge, because I said, you know what, Harry Potter, Forbidden Journey, I love that one too. I think it's a great ride. It was my number one. I kept playing back and forth between Harry Potter and Spider-Man, and then now Transformers is in the mix. And, Harry Potter is a great ride, but I think the story is kind of just like cobbled together. So the story for Forbidden Journey, it's just all the things that you would want to do from the movie. So, and they just threw it all into one ride. It's all the classic scenes, and the story is kind of, if you start thinking about it, doesn't really hold together very, very well. Spider-Man, kind of the same thing. I want to do this with this villain. I want to do that with this villain. And we're just going to move you from room to room to room to move you ahead in the story. And that's fine. But Transformers, man, it's like you are in that movie. It doesn't get bogged down in details. It's just pure fun from top to bottom. And it gives you all the motions that you would want in a Transformers ride. So that's why I give Transformers the edge as my number one dark ride. But yet right behind it is Forbidden Journey, is Spider-Man. But Gringotts is not on the list. I know some people, I'll call them out. Coast and East has gone out and said Gringotts is their favorite, is his favorite, dark ride. And I'm just like, I don't get it. It's not, but I should also throw out there that we haven't really talked about this, but is Jurassic Park a dark ride? I don't know.
Oh, the water ride. Yeah.
Because
I think that kind of goes into the whole discussion that we had about the roller coasters, about what is it really supposed to be. I think Jurassic Park, I don't think is enough of a dark ride for me to call it a dark ride.
Okay,
so it does have the indoor portion. I mean, it's kind of like Escape from Pompeii at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. It's got a dark ride portion, but Jurassic Park, a lot of that is outside.
I would agree with you on Jurassic Park, but to further muddy the water, get it? Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah, I know. To further muddy the water, what about something like Splash Mountain, or even Dudley Do-Right, which is almost exclusively inside for the, Dudley Do-Right, less so.
Atlantis.
Yeah, like those rides, they're almost all inside. And I don't rank them as dark rides, but should they be classified as dark rides at some point? Like something like Small World or Maelstrom. Like Maelstrom's a dark ride, it just happens to be on water.
Well, I think we're going to get into the Disney discussion in a few minutes here with rides like Maelstrom, and then Small World, and Pirates of the Caribbean is another one. Mm-hmm. Those I would consider dark rides, like Dudley Do-Right and Splash Mountain. I think of those as water rides first, just like I think of Rock and Roller Coaster, Space Mountain, and Revenge of the Mummy as roller coasters first. Even though Revenge of the Mummy, I can go either way on. You said that already. Like Space Mountain and Rock and Roller Coaster, I'm calling a roller coaster first. Splash Mountain, Journey to Atlantis, I'm calling those water rides first. So that's where I come down on that. If I can give my thoughts about the trio of Universal rides that you were discussing, I have always been a fan of Spider-Man over Forbidden Journey ever so slightly. For me, I think the motion, I like the intensity of the motion in Spider-Man, and I do like the story of Spider-Man to a certain extent. If there's one downfall to Spider-Man at all as an attraction, I think it's the queue line. I think the queue line, if anything, is the least immersive of the three of those queue lines between Transformers, Forbidden Journey, and Spider-Man. It does kind of give you a little bit of background on the story. I think Forbidden Journey, the queue line is very immersive and is very well done, and one of, if not the best queue lines around. The thing with Forbidden Journey, like you said, I think when the Harry Potter world, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter first came out, I think the idea of just being able to actually go to Hogsmeade and go to Hogwarts and do the stuff in the movies, I think that was the appeal of it. And it didn't matter that it doesn't have much continuity in terms of a storyline, because you see the Sorting Hat, and you see the talking paintings, and you see Dumbledore, and you see the students wearing the invisibility cloak. You see all of that. You see all of the iconic stuff from the movies that you almost forgive it that there isn't a drop-dead storyline. Now, Gringotts has more of a storyline. You're going for a tour. You're going for a tour of the vaults, and again, we're not going to get too much into it, but you have to escape from the vaults of Gringotts. And for me, Gringotts fell short of... Gringotts was the ride I expected to love and really liked. Transformers was the ride that I expected to love and was blown away by. And you know, I'll stop short of saying that there was disappointment on Gringotts, because it's a good attraction. It's a very good attraction. And the queue line is very good. The immersiveness of the queue line once you get inside is great. And something that you didn't get to experience because you were only able to do single rider is you do get to ride the elevator shaft down into Gringotts, and that is very well done. That is something that you miss out on the single rider line for Gringotts, that you can only get through the standard queue. And I think that is something that if you don't do, I think that subtracts from the experience a little bit. But the ride itself of Gringotts, the story is well put together. The issue that I had with Gringotts, number one, is you heard about how it was a roller coaster, and RCDV puts it very well. Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts is mostly a dark ride, but with a short coaster drop and turn at the start of the ride. And that's exactly what it is. It's got a drop and a turn before you get into the dark ride portion of it. And the motion isn't as... I would almost say the motion is a little sluggish, because the way it works, without giving too much away here, the train is on a track, and the cars do spin to face you towards the screens and where they want you to look. But the cars themselves don't move and like jar in like a simulator car does. It's actually the track just tilting. So you're limited in your degrees of freedom. And in order to move to the next room, it has to be back lined up. So your motion isn't as fluent, and it's very deliberate, and it's not as jarring, and it's not as jerky, which when it comes to an intense dark ride like a Spider-Man and a Transformers, that's what I enjoy. Because when I go to Transformers jerks you and jolts you and throws you all over the place, and it feels like you're there. Gringotts, it feels like you're watching something, but you're not necessarily involved. Transformers feels like you're there and you're part of it. And maybe another thing with Gringotts, there's not as much live scenery as there is in a ride like Transformers or Spider-Man, I don't think. All the main action is on the screens as opposed to Spider-Man and Transformers where you have mostly screens, but you do have some live props as well. So I think maybe that's where Gringotts falls off a little bit for me. I particularly enjoyed the storyline of Transformers as well. I enjoyed the movies. I like the movies. Now, my aunt, who she wrote in the Coaster Consortium and talked about Transformers and then Revenge of the Mummy. Her favorite is Transformers as well. She went into Transformers not knowing the movie series, not knowing what it was about. She had heard of it, but never knew the story, never knew the characters. And the first time we rode it, the line was about 25 minutes, which at the end of the line, you're in the very first room. So in 25 minutes, we got to experience every single room in the queue line, nothing more, nothing less. So we got the story of, she got to learn in the queue line what the Autobots are and what the Decepticons are and what the Allspark is and how that's like the symbol of power for the Transformers. And we learned that the Decepticons are after the Allspark, and that's what we're trying to protect the Allspark. And it's I think a beautifully done storyline, which is no more than the movie. It's the movie. Yeah. It's the movie storyline. But it's so well executed that the queue is part of the attraction, just like it is for Forbidden Journey and like it is for Gringotts. And then the intense jarring motion of the simulator and just some of the effects that are in Transformers, I was absolutely blown away by it. And I know some people are a little leery on the whole Transformers theme. I think the whole sci-fi Transformers theme is absolutely badass and is a beautiful storyline to do on a futuristic ride like that. And Spider-Man the same way in terms of the motion goes, but I like the story of Transformers better. I had a tough time deciding between Transformers and Spider-Man, with Forbidden Journey being my number 3, a close number 3. But I think if nothing, looking back on it now, a couple weeks removed, Transformers definitely my number 1. And I think the queue has a lot to do with that. So I would go Transformers 1, Spider-Man 2, Forbidden Journey 3.
With Transformers is I think Transformers lends itself to new and unique ride motions, which I thought like Spider-Man did stuff, and that stuff was done in Transformers, but Transformers took it to another level and kind of had all the elements that Spider-Man had, but also added a few more that were just pretty amazing. Stuff that upon reflection, and like I said, I don't want to give stuff away, but upon reflection, you say, oh, of course that should be there. It was just done so perfectly that it surprised you when it happened, and it was so cool. Now, another ride that I want to throw out there that is a lot like Transformers Spider-Man, and doesn't really get a lot of talk, is the Curse of DarKastle down at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, which I loved. And I went down with Dwayne 2 summers ago, and I was irritating him at some point because that's all I wanted to ride, because it was like 110 degrees. DarKastle is air conditioned, and I loved it so much that I think I rode it like 6 or 7 times in one day, because there was no line for it the whole day. And I think I was beginning to irritate him a little bit, because I think he was done with DarKastle. Like, he wanted to go like ride Griffin or something. I said, no, let's go ride DarKastle again. And he's like, like grumbling.
I think DarKastle is a really good example of how a regional park, the SeaWorld Busch Gardens thing is kind of like a national brand, but it really is a regional theme park. At least the Busch parks are really more regional. They're kind of halfway between national and regional, between like Disney and like a Cedar Fair. They're kind of in the middle there. And that's what DarKastle reminds me of. They're better. It's much better than maybe like just your standard Sally shooter, or like we'll talk about in a minute, like a Wonder Mountain's Guardian. It's a better dark ride than that, but it's not interactive. But it's maybe a half a step below a Spider-Man and a Transformers. The motion itself isn't quite as intense, The theming isn't. There are some spots where you go through just like a kind of a hallway with some moderate decorations. It's not completely immersive. There's one hallway where you're just looking at a screen. And it's just black walls on either side of you. So it's probably a half a step below the Universal dark rides, at least on my list. And then as far as intensity and like thrill dark rides go, but Curse of DarKastle is a fantastic attraction. Definitely a great storyline, some great scenes, a good length too. Something I didn't mention that with Transformers. The length of the Transformers ride really surprised me, and I think it has to do with it being 2 levels. That really helps. It really allows you to put a much longer ride in a small amount of space, quite frankly. It doesn't take up a very large building, and so it's very well done. So I mean, we've kind of talked. There's some other Universal rides that we haven't really mentioned, stuff like Despicable Me, which is that's more of your kid dark ride. But I think the ones we're really talking about are the big 3 that are kind of there at the Universal complex.
And I think at this point we need to throw it a little bit old school, because we had a number of people discuss the Disney stuff, and specifically
we did. I am looking at the list right here.
Yeah, specifically like things like Haunted Mansion that I know our longtime poster on COASTER.net, Water Parker, and our good friend Stephen Lynn, who also works on COASTER.net. They're both huge fans of the Haunted Mansion. Stephen Lynn is as I said before on an earlier episode, has gone on record to say that he would rather marathon Haunted Mansion than Maverick, and it blew my mind.
Sure.
I'm like, okay. But Haunted Mansion is one of those rides at Disney that, if I'm going to the Magic Kingdom, that's one of the rides I want to go on. That's always, and
that's one you have to do.
And to be honest with you, if given a limited amount of time and forced to choose one ride at Disney, or specifically the Magic Kingdom, I would choose Haunted Mansion as well. Now, I don't think I would rank it with the other dark rides, because when I rank stuff, I rank flat rides and dark rides together. So,
right.
Things like Jurassic Park's on there, things like Falcon's Fury's on there. But purely based on dark rides, I would think Haunted Mansion would rank pretty highly for me, just because, like Water Parker says, it's the technology that was used for that time period. And you talk about the immersive queue line, both outside and inside. For when it was built, it was really cutting edge stuff, especially that first room with the elongated ceiling that they put you in. And then when you get onto the ride, all the different ghost projections, both in your what are they called? Something buggies.
Your little dune buggy there, or whatever it is.
That ride is really, really cool to ride. Like I remember riding it my first time and just being like completely spellbound by it. So Haunted Mansion, I think, still holds up. I think Pirates of the Caribbean has a nostalgia place for it, and to be honest with you, if it wasn't for the movies, I don't think it would have the cult following. I think it would have the cult following, but I don't think it would have the widespread appeal that it does today. That it's because of Jack Sparrow and because Johnny Depp's portrayal of that character that has really reinvigorated the interest in Pirates of the Caribbean. Because otherwise, it's a classic Disney ride, but there's really not much else going on there. I just think it's because of the movies that ride has really stayed popular.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that the Pirates of the Caribbean movies have really kind of put a resurgence into that ride and its fan base with the refurbishment of it and the addition of the Jack Sparrow and then the Davy Jones and more recently the Blackbeard characters. You talk about Disney and we talk about Universal and how they're kind of the king of the intense dark rides. I think Disney's probably the king of the family dark rides. You're talking about who else could create a Haunted Mansion that is for everybody? 999 happy haunts. And then we talked about Pirates a little bit, and Pirates is still one of my favorite attractions. I am a big fan of the Pirates movies. I do like the California version is longer and I think much better. Definitely of Pirates. That's something that most people I think will tend to agree with. We had a lot of people talk about Disney stuff here. I'll read some of them off. Our friend Brian,
Bayakity. It's Bayakity.
Yeah, I know. No, we love Brian. He was on talking about Halloween with us about a month ago, and he mentioned the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland in California, and that is one of those. You haven't been on that one?
I have not been to Disneyland at all. So
okay. All right. So you don't have quite the comparison for the difference between some of the dark rides between Florida and California. The Pirates, California, I think it's better in California. Indiana Jones is one of those that we don't have in Florida. Out here in the East, we don't have that one. And that is a fantastic ride. The equivalent of it, I think, is the dinosaur ride at Animal Kingdom. It's the same ride vehicle. It's the same technology, but a much better story and, quite honestly, scenery and theme elements that the effects still all work. So if you can think of a better dinosaur ride with an Indiana Jones theme, that's kind of what you get on the Indiana Jones adventure. So I don't know what you think of the dinosaur ride.
I really like the dinosaur ride, but I like dinosaurs in general, and there's been talk of them darkening the backgrounds and stuff on that or something like that because things don't work anymore or something to that effect. I think
a lot of the effects over the years have kind of lost their luster, and some of them don't work anymore, and sometimes you're just going through dark scenes. That is not the case with the Indiana Jones ride. And now, I am a lot of people don't like the dinosaur ride. I do like the dinosaur ride. That being said, the Indiana Jones ride is better.
Okay.
Brian also mentioned later, he talked about Pirates and Haunted Mansion, and this is one that I think our buddy Ryan Shrout also, so he we'll get to Ryan's in a minute here. But another one that Brian said was Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, which I think again goes back to the family aspect here. One that Ryan Shrout talked about on our forums is Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and that's one that's not there anymore at Walt Disney World. I think I may have ridden that one when I was a kid. I don't remember it vividly if I did, so that's a tough one for me to comment on. I don't know if you've been on that one.
I did ride it as a kid, and I don't remember it at all, but I watched. There's a few good videos on YouTube right now. From it. And to be honest, that one reminded me of a pretty much a classic Sally Dark ride without the shooter aspect to it.
Yes.
It's very similar to that with the cardboard cutouts that are painted in blacklight colors. That's really your traditional dark ride. Is if you go back even to like things that are like the classic dark rides at like Indiana Beach or Waldemere or Knoebels, it's your classic. Let's use a black light to highlight different things and show off different structures and characters, and that Wild Ride really harkens back to that, and maybe that's where we go now is to talk about the Sally Dark rides. Which, first let me say that there's a part of me that likes the interactive shooter aspect, and there's a part of me that doesn't. And here's why. The reason why I'm not a huge fan, if I was to go on that side of the interactive, is because I think you spend so much time aiming your target at stuff that you completely lose sight of what is happening in the dark ride. That you don't see the characters, you're not taking in the story, you're simply aiming your gun to get points and kind of missing the whole point of the dark ride at some point. And I kind of don't like that aspect of it. And I try to if I have time, I try to ride the dark rides twice, one time where I shoot, one time where I don't, but it's so hard to resist picking up that gun and starting to shoot at stuff.
It is.
It's so hard. And it's like,
go ahead.
And it's like, I want to take in the atmosphere. I want to see those things.
Sure. So I have before we get too much into the Sally and then eventually Tryotech, because I have a point I'm going to make with Tryotech, to your point that you just said. We talked about Haunted Mansion, but Ryan Shroud also mentioned the Hong Kong Disneyland version, Mystic Manor, which by all accounts is better than the Haunted Mansions over here. So that's one I really like. Now, I want to get your opinion on one that we haven't mentioned that's at Disney, because I don't think people think of it as a dark ride first. Tower of Terror. I think it's absolutely a dark ride, but people think of it as a drop ride and a thrill ride first. But I think that maybe goes into a category like Revenge of the Mummy, where it's such a perfect blend of a thrill ride and a dark ride that it's really hard to classify as either.
As some of you know, I've been doing the Golden Loop Awards lately, and I was actually kind of surprised because I put a dark ride section on there, the best dark ride, and I wasn't really that specific with what a dark ride is constituted as. So I've gotten a huge range of responses, and I never really saw Tower of Terror as a dark ride, and to be completely honest,
people think of it as a drop ride.
Yeah, and
they think of it as a thrill ride, I think.
And to be honest, in my opinion, I don't know. I like the stuff they do in the dark ride section is kind of cool, but if it didn't have that drop in it, the drop tower portion, I don't think it would be all that exciting. Like, it tells the story. I almost see it as an extension of the queue as opposed to as a dark ride. And I know that's a weird distinction, but I don't know if I like it as a dark ride. That if I was to say what are the best dark rides, I would not put Tower of Terror on it, because I think the stuff that they do is cool. I don't think it's enough to constitute it being ranked among things like, DarKastle or the other stuff. So to me, yeah, I guess it has dark ride elements in it, but to me it falls way into the thrill ride section that I don't see the balance. I think the drop is really the main event and really the part that overpowers everything else. The rest is nice window dressing. I'm not saying I don't like those things, but I'm just saying that it's exactly that. I feel it's more as a window dressing than an integral part of the ride. But here's another one I'm going to throw out to you that a lot of people don't consider at all, and it's at Epcot. And it is Mission Space, which...
Yeah, see, that's kind of in the same category, isn't it? That's one that I didn't even think of. And I would say talk about Test Track and Soarin', too.
Yeah, I would say thrill ride for Test Track, for Mission Space, but it's still... Like, Mission Space is one of those weird rides that it's a flat ride. It
doesn't really fit into anything. You could call it a spinning ride if you wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just so weird. And it's like... But yet you're spinning, but yet the whole purpose of you on the ride is to realize that you're not spinning, to actually feel like you're moving through different scenes that are playing out in front of screens, essentially.
Right.
That it's a screen dark ride that, you're experiencing this stuff. So I kind of find it interesting that, if we want to throw out things that are like outliers that people really don't think about, but you could definitely
I think we talked about Revenge of the Mummy at the beginning there and how that's kind of like an oddball where it kind of fits into two categories.
Mm-hmm.
I think the kind of log flume / roller coaster / dark rides, and then rides like Mission Space, Tower of Terror, and like Test Track, where it's really a good combination of maybe a dark ride, but it's sort of meant to be a thrill ride. I think maybe that's where those go. It's like Splash Mountain is meant to be a water ride, but it's also a dark ride. Revenge of the Mummy, Tower of Terror, Mission Space, Test Track, those are meant to be thrill rides, I think. So maybe that's where we make that distinction there and kind of move on from there. So now I want to get into the Sally and Triotech things. We're about at, I think we're about at the 35-40 minute mark here, so we want to keep this going here. You talked about how with this, most of the Sally rides, you're actually aiming at targets.
Yeah.
And I think you see that same thing with the Men in Black ride.
Oh, yeah.
At Universal. You have targets, and well, your targets are the aliens. So it's, in a way, I agree with you, because the targets kind of take away from the immersiveness, I think. You go to the regional parks, and you're looking at stuff like Boo Blasters, and then at Hershey Park, their Sally ride is the Reese's Extreme Cup Challenge. And you're so focused on shooting these targets that you kind of miss what the theme is and what the story is. And Gobbler Getaway at Holiday World is the same way. You're so focused on shooting the turkeys and the targets that you kind of miss out on the story.
You're not shooting the turkeys. You're calling the turkeys.
Right, okay.
And I actually thought that was a really ingenious way, because Holiday World didn't want you to actually go around shooting turkeys and trying to kill the turkeys, that you're calling the turkeys.
Right.
That was hysterical. Yeah, right. I loved it. I did.
Yeah, that's good. So, but again, you're losing kind of that immersiveness by having targets in there. And we're talking about the Battle for Metropolis dark ride and how amazing that should be, especially we talked about on the IAPA show a couple weeks ago, the animatronics that are going to be in there. And by all accounts, that should be a very immersive attraction and a very impressive attraction. But if it's got those targets right in the middle of like the Joker's chest, it's going to take away from it a little bit, I think, because I'm not going to be focusing on how great of an animatronic it is.
A lot of people don't realize this, but the Sally Dark Ride there's already a Justice League Sally Dark Ride in Australia that actually. If you watch the video of that, they use the Starro the Conqueror story. That if you don't know who Starro is a character that looks like a starfish. Well, not him, but his minions look like starfish. And they take over the superheroes, and you have to they stick on your face like a face hugger, and you have to like get rid of them, or you're under Starro's control. So they actually did a really good job with you having to shoot starfish and integrating the starfish into the actual set pieces, so that you're not really like shooting at like the bullseye targets, which I think are just ridiculous at some point, that you have to shoot the bullseye and then like you're exclusively focusing in on the bullseye and not the prop piece. So hopefully it's more like that. I know they're not doing the Starro story for the Battle for Metropolis from all indications. So I wonder if there will be something else like that takes the place of Starro. Because I really think that Sally is taking their craft to a whole new level with the Battle for Metropolis. And also there's a park over in Europe that's doing a horror dark ride that the name of it escapes me at this time. But I know we did an article on it earlier this year on COASTER.net. And that one looks to have – you saw the animatronics for that when you were at IAPA, they had some of the animatronics for the zombies and the horror stuff at the show there. So you kind of took that in. That one looks really cool too. For me, the Sally Dark rides have always been kind of kiddie, especially the Scooby-Doo ones. My favorite of the old bunch up to this point has been Gobbler Getaway because of the unique storyline that it had. I just think that it was painted so well and the black light reflected so well in it that I thought it was really well done. The Scooby-Doo rides have always been, and the Boo Blasters that they took Scooby-Doo out, correct? Right?
Right.
They used to be Scooby-Doo.
It's just a generic ghost storyline now.
Yeah. So those have always been kind of too kiddie for me. I like riding them. But I think Sally is now moving into this new phase of, obviously they're not competing with Universal. That's just silly to talk about. But what they're doing is far more intricate and immersive from a story perspective, from a prop perspective, than what I think they've done in the past. And I love it. I think it's a great way to go. And Trio Tech, I'll be honest, I have not been on Guardian, but from what you said of Guardian, I'm not super excited by the concept of all screens. But then you also mentioned that at IAPA, it might look like they're starting to integrate some props into stuff, which I would be all for if that's the case.
Right. Well, and I'll speak to that. And I do really like where Sally is going. You talked about how they're hearkening back to. They've always gone back to, a lot of it was, okay, blacklight, ghost, and targets. It looks like they're starting to get more into the immersive dark ride experience with the animatronics, not just like 2D cutouts that have targets on them. They're really moving away from those old classic dark rides, like the Bill Tracy ones. You see one like that at Knoebels, obviously, and you see them at the Boardwalk. I think Trimpers has one down in Ocean City, Maryland. Waldemere has one. At Indiana Beach, you see the old classic dark rides where it's the gags, like, okay, the electric chair guy and the snake pops out of the clock. And, the old truck that blows its horn at you at the end and with the lights right there. Sally's kind of starting to move towards the 3D immersive live action dark rides, which is nice to see. On the flip side of that, you see Triotech going this route of all screens. And there's a good side and a bad side to that. And it depends on what your preference is. The bad side to it is if you want a fully immersive experience, right now, in the case of Wonder Mountain's Guardian, it's all screens. The station, and you have the mountain itself, but once you're on the ride in the dark ride part, it is all screens. So you don't get the live scenery like you get on a Transformers or a Spider-Man or a Forbidden Journey or a Pirates or a Haunted Mansion or anything like that, or even like on the new Metropolis dark ride. The thing that I like about Triotech and the good side to being all screens is that you can change the storyline. And Wonder Mountain's Guardian, they did that for Halloween. They turned it into a zombie ride with a completely different storyline and essentially made it a brand new attraction for the Halloween haunt. I haven't heard if that's going to be done every year or if that was a one-time thing. We have heard that Knott's will not do that for Knott's Scary Farm. They will keep Voyage to the Iron Reef. They will keep that as the Voyage to the Iron Reef storyline. We also heard that Voyage to the Iron Reef will be all media-based. However, the one thing that I did see at IAPA, which you talked about, there was one set on one of their rides where you were kind of in like a corner of like an alley, and there were a few barrels, and there was like a transformer, like an electrical transformer where you had to shoot out the fuses and then it would explode. Excuse me. The projection is really cool. The projection they had where the projection screen was on the barrel, and if you shot the actual barrel, the screen would put a little bullet hole. So it looked like there was a bullet hole on the barrel, and then like slime would ooze out, and as you shot things on the screen, they would like explode, and then other live action things the screen projection would give you like little marks on it, or like bullet holes, or chunks would be taken out of it. That's super cool. And I think if maybe we see Triotech start to put live sets like that with the screen still projected on them, I think that adds another element of it. And you talked about the whole Target thing with Sally. The neatest thing for me with Wonder Mountain's Guardian was that number one, the guns are all different colors. So when you get on Wonder Mountain's Guardian, the way it works, there's two cars. There's two people facing forward in each car and two people facing backward in each car. And you go through a little coaster drop. Once you get into the building, you turn sideways. The two cars are back to back. They turn sideways. So you're actually facing out sideways from the track. And there's two sets of screens. There's one for the people facing backwards and one for you facing forwards. Now, the interesting thing is there are no targets. It's a 3D screen with the glasses. So you're actually shooting the characters on the screen. And there's 4 people looking at each screen, and each person has a different colored dragon on top of their gun. And at IAPA, it was just a dot. But the dot on top of your gun indicates what color your little laser blaster is, your dot on the screen is. So you know instantly that I look at my gun and say, okay, I'm the blue dot. This person's the red dot. And you know exactly where your dot is. It's not like, well, I don't know which one of those 4 little red laser dots is mine, shooting, because you're all shooting at the same target. What I like about the Triotech and Guardian in particular, and I'm sure it's the same way with all the others, you have to actually shoot the characters on the screen. So you're not looking for targets. You're shooting the environment. And you feel like you're part of that environment. And that's what I like about Triotech over Sally, is that you're not focused on the targets. Even though you're focused on shooting things, you're focused on shooting things that are a part of the story. That would actually be there. If in real life, if you're shooting ghosts, you'd be shooting the ghost. You wouldn't be shooting targets next to the ghost.
You wouldn't be shooting the suit of armor next to the ghost. You'd be shooting.
Right, exactly. So with Wonder Mountain's Guardian, there's 5 scenes altogether, and at each scene there's different characters, and there's a video in the queue line, and I think you can find it on YouTube that tells you about the different characters and what their strengths and what their weaknesses are. And I'll just rattle some of them off here. There's a character, not all of them, but there's Beastie Bats. There's, Spooky Spiders, I think. Maybe Spooky. I know Beastie Bats, Spooky Spiders or Scary Spiders. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a while since I've been there. There's Draconians, which are like the guards of the city, and they have like the shields, and you actually have to shoot the shields before you shoot them, because their shields, they're like the guard force when you get into the Draconian city area. And then there's also archers, which they're essentially like archery guys who fight from a distance. They're in the background, and those guys are like worth more points. And what I've been told by my friends up at Canada's Wonderland, both park employees and non-park employees, is that they are constantly tweaking that video to make it a little bit better. They completely revamped the scoring system in August so that there's a different scoring system now, so that scores are a lot higher and different things are worth different points. And there's little like Easter eggs that you can shoot for bonus points. But again, they're not targets. Like, if you shoot a character, coins pop out when you kill them, and the coins are worth bonus points. And the whole idea behind Wonder Mountain's Guardian, without giving away a lot of the secrets, is the storyline is you're trying to retrieve the king's crown from the guardian of Wonder Mountain, which is a dragon named Lord Ormar. And
I've heard that story somewhere before. Maybe in The Hobbit.
Yeah, it really is a Hobbit-like storyline. And so when you get into, and really isn't spoiling it, this is more of a tip for when you go to Canada's Wonderland. But if you don't want to hear anymore, maybe skip ahead 30 seconds. When you get into Lord Ormar's lair, which is the last shooting scene, there are several treasure chests inside the lair, and you have to shoot the treasure chest, one of which has the crown in it. And it changes each time. It is random. It changes. So you have to shoot the right treasure chest, and then you also have to shoot the crown before Lord Ormar gets back to the lair. And that's the challenging part. Now, I'm one that's really good at Wonder Mountain's Guardian, and I've typically beaten most of the people I go with. I get higher scores than, but I have yet to get the crown. When I went with my sister, we rode it 4 times over the course of 2 days. She got the crown 3 of 4 times, and one of our other friends got it the other time, but I had a higher score than her 3 out of 4 times, because I don't know how much the crown is worth.
So it's not like finding the snitch where you automatically win the Quidditch match.
No, it's not like the snitch where you automatically win. But when you go through back to the station, you see the screens with your scores. It has your scores underneath your picture, but then it also has a pulsing crown above the person who got the crown. So there's like 2 different storylines. You're trying to get the high score, but you really want to get the crown too. And that comes into the rewritability of it, where again, you can beat your score, and Canada's Wonderland has been very good about keeping all the guns working. I've been told that they put a special effort into making sure all the guns work, because it's not like a Sally Dark Ride where if you don't do the guns, you can still kind of observe the scenery, because it's meant to be interactive, which is nice. One other interesting fact about Guardian is because it makes all left turns inside the building during the dark ride portion, if you're facing out on the outer part of the turns, it's one continuous screen, which is the longest continuous interactive screen in the world on a dark ride. That's one of the 2 world records that it breaks. Guardian does break 2 world records. That's one of which. If you're on the end, you get a little guide that, like, kind of like the king's servant guard, like leading you through the scenes. If you're on the inside, you don't see that because it's not a continuous screen. The screens are squared off because you do a turn around here and the screens are squared off. So you don't get that. It's actually a shorter ride because you go right from this shooting to shooting over on this screen here, whereas on the outside you get a little bit of a transition screen where the guide is. So the experience does differ a little bit depending on which side you're sitting on. There's no extra targets, there's no extra characters. There's really not a point advantage to sitting on either side. So it's interesting because you start outside during the day. It's harder to get higher scores on Guardian because your eyes aren't adjusted to the light, so it's harder to see the screens. At night, the screens are much brighter, but when you first go into the mountain, you can actually see where the screens are before you turn because your eyes are adjusted to the darkness and you can see where the screens end. So it's slightly less immersive, but it's easier as a shooter. Mm-hmm. So that's the interesting about Wonder Mountain's Guardian. I won't talk more about Guardian because I don't want to spoil the ride part itself, the ending, so to speak, the finale of it, which is the big deal. If you want to know what happens and what the ride does, you can go find it. Sure, I'm not going to say it here. I've never talked about it with anyone who hasn't been on the ride, so I won't do that. But there is a neat little ending to Wonder Mountain's Guardian that I'll say it's some sort of record.
Okay.
I won't tell you what. If I don't know, I won't tell you if it's the fastest of anything, or the first of anything, or the tallest of anything, or the longest. But I will say there is 2 world records of Wonder Mountain's Guardian. One is the longest continuous interactive dark ride screen. The other is something else.
Well, I'm excited to see what Triotech does, and for all intents and purposes, I was waiting for the announcement this year of who was going to get the new dark ride for Cedar Fair.
Yep.
And I pretty much everyone was assuming that Knott's would be getting it, at least after the month of August when every other park basically announced what they were doing. Everyone just assumed Knott's would be doing one of the dark rides. I think a lot of people were taken aback by the theme of it, though. I thought most people thought it would be a redux of their dinosaur dark ride that they used to have way back when. And it completely went in a different route, and now the rumors have sprouted up with Cedar Point knocking down their Good Time Theater, and like you said, Rob Decker spending a lot of time at Triotech.
A lot of time there.
Yeah. I keep saying Disaster Transport make a great shooter, and I think it would lend itself well to the all screens if you are in space, flying through space. Giving you the moving stars, I think, would lend itself well to than having a completely done up 3D world that you're driving through. Because everything above you is gonna. If you could do stars above you, do stars on the side of you, and I think you could do a lot more with it. So I'm really hoping, and I'm to the point of being upset if it's not.
Well, and again, this is another nice advantage of the Triotech thing being all media based. And hey, it was something my sister, she when we went up over Labor Day weekend, she had heard about how much I enjoyed Guardian, and she said that she was almost a little disappointed that there wasn't any live scenery. She said had I told her that, she would have enjoyed it so much more. And keep in mind, she still really, really loved Guardian. She said if she was to wait in line 45 minutes for a ride there, and Leviathan became her number one steel coaster, she said that Guardian was still her favorite ride. And you know what? As a roller coaster, it's not like some of the other coasters are at that park, but as an overall attraction, it might be my favorite attraction there. But if I'm going for a roller coaster, I'm going to Behemoth or Leviathan. But a lot of people, the people who've ridden Wonder Mountain's Guardian, have been big fans of it. M Coaster Boy on Twitter said Wonder Mountain's Guardian is one of his favorites. And then Coaster Chit Chat also talked about Sally and said any Sally ride is, kind of their favorite dark ride. So we got a lot of good interaction from folks. And I really, Trioject in particular, because I'm such a Cedar Fair fan and, I'm a shareholder in Cedar Fair currently and a former Cedar Fair employee, I really hope that Triotech continues to come to the different parks. And not to say that I don't think the Battle of Metropolis storyline is impressive, because I think it is, and I think it's going to be really good. But the fact that Cedar Fair is going out of their way to tailor make these rides for each of their parks, like Wonder Mountain's Guardian, look at that. You can only do that at Canada's Wonderland with that mountain and that storyline. It only works there because that is the icon of that park since it opened in 1981. It's been about the mountain. And there hasn't been Thunder Run, yes, is kind of inside the mountain, but there hasn't been an attraction that really focused around the mountain in a long time. And that is the focal point of this ride. Knott's is doing the same thing with Voyage to the Iron Reef. They have the whole boardwalk theme, and Voyage to the Iron Reef is really playing on, I think the storyline is you have these steampunk-like fish and creatures that are just going to destroy the steel part of the parks, right? That's kind of what the storyline is. So you can only do that at Knott's Berry Farm, or at least you might be able to make it work somewhere else, but it really fits the Knott's theme and the boardwalk theme that they have in that area. And, California right there on the water, it's you talk about the beach all the time, sunny year round. It really fits that storyline. And, you talked about it with Cedar Point possibly doing something disaster transport related. That works at that park. You could even, we talked about it 2 weeks ago on the IAPA show. You could call it disaster transport, mission to something, or just put a subtitle on it and call it the same thing. And right there, you instantly connect the park's history with a brand new ride, and it automatically connects with that fan base. Just like Wonder Mountain's Guardian connects with the Canada's Wonderland fans, Voyage to the Iron Reef is going to connect with the Knott's fans because it fits that park so well, and it fits the mold really well there. So I'm excited to see what the future of dark rides has for us. I think Universal and Disney have done such a good job with their dark rides that the regional parks are starting to see that this works, and this is an exciting thing for guests to do. Busch Gardens did it with DarKastle. That's a successful attraction there. And now that we start to see the regional parks, the Six Flags and the Cedar Fair parks get into it, I think we're going to continue to see it because they're seeing that these rides are successful and probably one of the most popular attractions in their parks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited to see what the future holds because I think people are just going to keep pushing what they can do with this stuff. But on that note, I think we've come to the conclusion of tonight's show where I think we've covered it all. I think we've covered all the major dark rides here, and I think it's clear which ones we feel are best, but I think it's also clear that the future, even if they're not as immersive, you're not going to be able to spend $45 million on a dark ride like Universal can. And I don't even want to talk about King Kong. So I don't want to even mention that because I am so beyond irritated that Jurassic Park and Jurassic World's coming out this summer, but yet we're getting a King Kong ride. I'm not even over that fact yet.
It's like, Jay, Jurassic World, that's great. Universal could totally. Oh wait, they're building a King Kong ride.
Oh well.
But yeah, you're right. Cedar Fair isn't going to spend $45 million or $50 million on a dark ride, but Wonder Mountain's Guardian, $10 million. That's less than a major roller coaster for them. Perfect for that kind of park. And again, I'm a big fan of it. I don't want to hype it up for people. I don't want to hear people getting the anticipation factor because I said I was a fan of it. Go into it knowing that it's all screens. It's not completely immersive, but it is a hell of a lot of fun. And I think you can say that about a lot of the regional dark rides. And most of the dark rides in general. They're really fun, maybe not the most intense in some cases, although Transformers and Spider-Man, you can make that argument. But in general, probably one of the best attractions at a park in general, I think, is the dark rides. If it's done well, they're some of the best attractions out there, right up there at the roller coasters.
Well, as always, we thank you for joining us here on COASTER.net Uncut. Please join us next week as we talk about another topic that I think we have a few ideas for, but we're going to keep it secret here right now. And then always join us on the forums, join us on the Coaster Consortium, where we ask you these questions, get involved. We love to hear what you have to say. Keep sending out those comments on YouTube that, we
great comments this week, definitely.
Oh, man, the comments, even on the older episodes, have been awesome. So please keep sending those to us. We love responding. We love to hear what you have to say. Like I said, we want to make this as interactive as possible. As always, I am Andy Robarczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And Daniel Miller from Rochester, New York, where we just got a brand new foot of snow during finals week here. So that's just fantastic.
And as always, right on, Ride Warriors.
See you next week.